Do you play Arsenal? Do you want to die? Well, if you said yes to both of those, then you fit into a statistic. Row studies show that about 50% of Arsenal players want to rip their hair out. And after making this video, let's just say I might have a couple of new bald spots. This is me, Soggy Sushi, a blue stick even though I only play red team. So if there was one thing that I would want you to know about me, it would be that I love Arsenal. I used to live, breathe, and sleep it, but alas, nowadays I'm washed. So we're restarting my shooter game journey by rating every publicly playable map as a beginner would see it. For someone that used to average first and second place in every round, getting 12th place was quite an adjustment, but enough with that, let's just get into the game. Firstly, we must pay tribute to our fallen soldiers, the retired Arsenal maps. In my opinion, those are some of the most goated maps ever, but there was this whole Roblox drama, and most of them are removed now. Back in my day, Agency, Glacier, and Vertigo were absolutely holding it down every single game. My top favorite retired map would for sure have to be Agency. It's just so versatile and so easy to play, especially for someone who's lost all their skills, like me. But if we're talking about maps that are still in public rotation, my absolute favorite would just have to be the widely divided Neon. Speaking of, that is going to be our first rating, Neon. Firstly, I'm rating these games out of 20, 10 points for playability as a beginner, 5 points for design, 3 points for game flow, and of course, because I play on mobile, 2 points for lagginess. Altogether, I'd rate Neon a solid 19. Maybe I'm biased, maybe it's just an awesome map. I'd say it's a solid bit of both. My only note is that without enemy outlines enabled, the saturation of the colors made it a little bit hard to differentiate the enemies and the actual map itself. Otherwise, I really like the color scheme and the overall feel of design. The spawn points are relatively spaced out, and I surprisingly didn't lag that bad, especially considering the fact that I was simultaneously recording. Honestly though, I don't have much more to say. I think my rating speaks for itself. Next, we have Dizzy, which I think takes just a little bit of skill. Personally, I'd rate it an 18. It's not bad at all, but for a beginner, I think it's a little bit too fast-paced and too chaotic to gain full points. The design itself is also just a little bit bland, which has its pros and of course its cons. The map isn't too visually enticing, but on the other hand, the colorful enemy tracksuits are somewhat highlighted against a bleak background. Also, I think the dependence on vertical position is a little bit too advanced or complicated, especially because of the advantage provided by the rooftops compared to being on the ground level or in the basement. Additionally, the constant spawn flips make it very easy to experience damage from behind or to lose sight of enemies, and altogether, it's a fairly suitable map, but I don't think it's extremely welcoming to new players. Next up, we have Lodgeworks, which for me earns a 16 out of 20. The design concept of a snowy mountain lodge is charming, but I find that the map's design can make the gameplay slightly awkward. The outdoor areas subject players to far sightlines and long-range battles. The inside of the lodge can become slightly cramped, with certain choke points around the edges becoming crowded, which I suppose was the original goal. The building itself acts as a focal point, so nearly all routes around the map eventually pass through or around it, creating a violent hotspot. Even so, the game flows naturally, and the balanced mechanics keep it from being too repetitive. I didn't lag at all, and I found that it was very easy to separate graphics and enemy attackers. The map itself isn't horrible for a beginner, and there is a good mix of combat ranges, but personally, Lodgeworks is nothing to write home about. Not to be confused with Sandtown, although who would make that mistake other than me, we have Deathstorm. In my opinion, it's not horrible for a beginner, earning a 15.5 on the Soggy Sushi scale. I will say the similar looking buildings and the different side paths can make it a bit of a confusing biome during the first couple of rounds. I think a new player might also not realize the value of the elevated platforms, therefore they might wander into open air without even realizing that they're being scouted. The game flow is generally balanced, but I think at times it becomes slightly repetitive, especially considering the fact that a fair part of the action takes place in the middle portion. The pacing is consistent, just maybe a little bit boring. The design is also very warm-toned, but the opposing team is still very easy to see. I like how cohesive all the colors are and how detailed the map itself is. I find that it's a nice dependable mode, but still doesn't leave a lasting impression. Next up, we have height frights, which personally is one of my least favorites. I don't even want to talk about how long it took me to find a server that was actually willing to vote for this map, and that just kind of goes to show how publicly hated it is. Even so, I tried to give it my fairest opinion. I will say I do like the concept and the color schemes. I find it very visually pleasing, but that's just about as far as it goes. In this map, I believe that positioning is just as important as aiming, which to someone new to Arsenal might not be a skill yet acquired. The design itself is quite elaborate, with many spaces having multiple escape routes. Also, verticality plays a solid role, with multiple floating platforms and map-wide roller coasters. Overall, I give it a 15 because I find that this would be a significant challenge to any beginner. On a map like this, spatial awareness would just be a big problem. Because of the difference in altitude between certain sniper nooks, players can be attacked from above, below, and even across the entire map. For someone new to the game who would excel in slower, grounded gameplay, height frights would just be an unforgiving experience. We have a map that is highly controversial and provoked a lasting debate after its initial addition in 2019, Complex. When I said that I didn't like height frights, put whatever you interpreted that as and multiply it to the power of 10. I absolutely hate this map even when I was more skilled at this game. It just made almost every round miserable for me. Personally, the design concept sounds better than the actual experience. The original idea was an office-themed war zone, but instead we got a few crammed and chaotic corridors. My rating is a low 11 out of 20, which honestly might be the worst one throughout the rest of this series. Personally, I think skill takes a turn on the back burner with this map, with most of the combat simply being who takes the other by surprise first. The small hallways and tight corners create constant action, but the problem is that there's almost too much going on. The gameplay is repetitive, there's too many surprise deaths, there's limited strategic options, and overall it's just more random than skill-based. Both beginners and pros alike have strong feelings about this map, and I can't even blame them. Aside from no lag and boring colors, Complex really just doesn't have much going for itself. Well anyways, maybe we should end this video on a better note. To be fair, if the last map that I heard someone else review was Complex, I wouldn't feel too encouraged to hop on the game, especially as a new player. Let's go with Township, a so-so map that doesn't have any immediate issues, but also no memorable qualities. The design is simple, a few brick walls, a nice wide street, and an open area. This has more of a traditional FPS game feel, rather than requiring unique movement mechanics or any special features. I'd rate it a solid 17 out of 20. Township is pretty balanced. I liked the most when I was in open-air close combat, but otherwise the gameplay was substantial. There were nice open areas for snipers, a decent flow between central streets and elevated balconies, and a hefty arsenal of suitable weapons. The only shortcoming of this map was just the fact that it's a game mode that can fade into the background. There aren't any unique strategies to be learned, and there often aren't any amazing movement plays. The visuals are kind of meh and doesn't have any personality compared to maps like Neon or Matrix. So that was it for part 1. I hate to do it, but come back later for more. I mean really, how was I meant to review 18 maps in one video? Thanks so much for watching, and hey, maybe by the time I'm done with the series, I'll actually be really good at Arsenal. Bye!